Cup of Go for March 20, 2023. Keep up to date with the news in the Go community in just 15 minutes per week. I'm your co-host, Jonathan Hall.
And I'm your co-host, Shai Nechmad.
How are you doing this week, Shai?
I'm frazzled. I have my water here, which is not canonical for our show. It's a bottle, not a cup.
No.
The listeners don't know, but we talked about Rust and not Go before the episode. Everything's going to hell, Jonathan. Bring me back to my usual routine. Tell me what's going on in Go.
We have some great releases this week. The one that I'm excited about is the new version of golangci-lint. Version 1.52 is out. And the reason I'm excited about this is they finally closed the remainder of the generics issues. I think there were two outstanding bugs. Two of the linters did not support generics yet, so had been disabled if you're running with Go version 1.18 or newer. They're all finally fixed. So if you've been holding out, as I was at a previous company, to upgrade your Go version because you wanted your linters to work, you can stop holding out. You can stop using Go 117 and finally come up to modern Go versions and still get all the amazing shiny benefits of golangci-lint.
I'm sending it in internal Slack right now. Let's upgrade.
On a similar topic, Revive 1.30 and shortly after 1.31 were released. If you're not familiar, Revive is one of the linters that golangci-lint uses, and it's a drop-in replacement for GoLint that adds additional capabilities. So that's also been updated. It wasn't a major update, but since we're talking about linters, might as well mention that one too.
Also released this week is Fast HTTP. And if you want to learn more about Fast HTTP and hear from its creator, Eric Doppelboer, you can listen to our latest episode where we interviewed him. This release includes a lot of different documentation stuff, test stuff, a lot of testing, and some optimizing as well. Support for Go 120, and just a whole lot of small fixes. If you are the 1% that needs super fast HTTP responses, then this library is for you. So I think this makes it for the releases this week. But there is something timely to talk about. Last call is today. Today? Really today? We have to put out this episode pretty fast, huh?
Today.
So today.
Yeah.
For the Conf 42 call for papers. So if you have something to talk about, you have 2 hours from this recording, Jonathan. You better edit fast. So hand in your talk if you have one. Cool. So we talked about releases. Let's move to proposals.
There's a lot of proposals this week. We're not going to talk about all of them. The big one, though, is that the structured logging proposal was accepted. So we talked about this on the show before. I think we talked about it even last week when we said it was the last chance to get your opinion in. It's finally been accepted. So we will be having a new log/slog package in the standard library. I hope it comes soon. I hope it's in 121, although I don't know how soon it will happen. But that's exciting for me.
It happened. Log/slog initial commit. So I was hyped about seeing
Nice.
There's already a commit with the slog package, a ton of code there, so you can check it out. We'll put it in the, from Go Review, so we'll put it in the show notes as well. Also in the discussion and, proposal land, and also something we talked about in the past, the transparent telemetry discussion is still ongoing. I think the fire went down a little bit. The team decided to go with opt-in, and this became a normal proposal, just like all the others, and not a very contentious one. I hope it stays this way and stays productive. I don't know if this week could be considered productive. Seemed like a little bit of silly bike shedding. But I guess you have to have a little bit of that in every project.
Yeah, so this week the discussion, I guess, was mainly on whether or not to include full strings in the report that's sent to Google, to the Go team, or if those should be obfuscated with index IDs. And I think the consensus generally was that obfuscating that would just be sort of privacy theater. It wouldn't really buy anything.
Yeah, one thing that was interesting is, the more the proposal takes shape and things become clear, the benefits for end users and not just for the Go team also becomes interesting. Like one thing that I found interesting was that the telemetry is sampled, so you don't send everything every time you run, like go build or go run or whatever, but you do store it locally. So I assume someone will come up with a tool, go inspect telemetry, which shows you statistics about your local execution. Assuming the Go team can take the telemetry and for the general case make things faster, perhaps people will come up with ways to take the telemetry and make their specific work setup more optimized. Which is an angle I didn't even think about, but more data about the tools we run should lead to better decisions. And hopefully, the telemetry is also useful for one person or one machine running for like a few weeks and not just for 1 million people running in a single day. So the discussion is still ongoing. And I think due to sampling and like data science tools and whatever, they have sort of dealt with the garbage data problem where because it's super anonymized, IP and whatever is not stored, someone could shove bad data into the system. But I'm not sure how they fully resolved it. Like if someone has interest in putting garbage data into the system, for example, someone is doing academic research into being a bad actor in the space, I don't see how they could protect from that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not some like theoretical, right? This already happened in the past with the Linux kernel. There was some university, I don't remember which one, where students did a research and they published a paper into purposefully introducing vulnerabilities into the Linux kernel, which coincidentally got the entire university banned from the Linux kernel project ever again.
And rightly so, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. So I would wonder how they would protect from that without, storing, like recording the IP address or whatever with the report. But yeah, it's moving along. I think it would be great the moment it goes in, the Go team will have a lot of good information to steer the project forward. What other proposals do we have on the table?
Yeah, so there's a new proposal, or I don't know if it's new, but it's an open proposal, which I think is interesting. It's for the context package, and it's to add the option to register a callback that will be called when the context is canceled. If you do any heavy programming with context, you've probably created something like this before. So I think it's a good proposal. It looks like it's likely to be accepted, although it's not the official status right now. But the last comment from 4 days ago from Russ Cox says, have all concerns about this proposal been addressed? So I think I wouldn't be surprised if next week it has the official likely accept status. But as it stands, basically the proposal is to create a new function in the context package. I believe it would be called afterfunc, although maybe there's a couple different proposals for the name. That was the first one. That's what the original proposal was, do ondone. Although near the end of the discussion, it looks like it's called afterfunc. I don't know. I think ondone is more intuitive, but whatever it would be, you'd pass an existing context and then a function that would be called when that context is canceled. And the main reason to put this in a standard library rather than letting people roll their own is that there are some opportunities for better improvement. Basically, the way you do it normally is you launch a Go routine in the background that waits till that context canceled. This would allow you to do it in a way that doesn't require an extra Go routine, so it's slightly more performant, which could matter if you're, say, one of the users of fast HTTP and you really, really care about extra garbage collection and high performance.
Where I'm slightly worried about this is when you have to roll out your own implementation, then you write your own test, and you don't feel comfortable that it's something from the standard library. Mm-hmm. But if a standard library rolls something like ondone and you can pass a pointer and it only happens after you cancel, I assume, at least in the first few months of this being in the air, we're going to have a few people introducing nil pointer exceptions to their production stacks because they passed in a value and like a pointer to a value. The context was canceled. It was released because they're out of scope and whatever. And then the ondone function is called and they get a nil pointer exception or a DB closed exception or, some cleanup code already exists and then they're trying to migrate to the new thing. Tests aren't usually very good in looking into these scenarios. They look at happy paths and not like cleanup paths. So this could be an issue. I think it's going to be hard to use well, even though it is a strong proposal.
And next up, improve ergonomics of fmt.print-like functions. This one hasn't gotten a lot of attention yet. I'm bringing it up because it's interesting, although I don't personally like it very much. The hope of the proposal is to encourage us to use more efficient versions of print functions rather than printf, sprintf, and fprintf, because those are, fairly low performance. There's a lot of string interpolation and reflection that goes on there. So the idea is to come up with some functions that would take away the need to call the printf related functions. The proposal is to add a function called error, which takes a variadic list of arguments of any type and returns an error. And it does some magical error wrapping. There's been some debate in the discussion thread about how that error wrapping should be done if you have more than one error in there. Another function is called type, which just returns the type of the argument passed. So similar to the %T argument in fprintf, but this would be a way to get that same value without having to call the heavy fprintf or sprintf function. And then there's a few others, some value formatting stuff. So anyway, it's kind of an interesting idea. I don't really think it would solve the problems it's aiming to solve, but I could be wrong. And even the author of the proposal doesn't know. This is sort of a guess. I feel like it's kind of a shot in the dark, but it's an interesting proposal. If you've been concerned or frustrated by having to call fprintf or printf all the time, go have a look at this proposal. See if you think it makes sense. Maybe you can shed some light on your use cases, and maybe we can find a way to improve this.
I really like the methodology of the proposal, even if I don't agree with the conclusion, where the proposer just downloaded very ubiquitous Go projects and tried to find print and println and sprintf and whatever debugf calls in the code, and then from that try to see which formatting values are used. Very unsurprisingly, the easy and comfortable, %V is the number one by far, which is what I reach for every time I do printf without thinking about it, and then I go back and fix if I need a number.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. And around the community, we found two interesting stuff to talk about this week. The first one is the meeting minutes from the Go compiler team. If you remember, we talked about profiler guided optimization. So there are some results from the field. The first PGO results from a Google internal app talks about 2.75% CPU increase with some manual process behind it that I literally copied the profiles and converted them to pprof and then fed it into the PGO. There are some Google-specific stuff there, which I assume we can't see, but the results are in, and it works. 3% CPU increase practically for free. There are some concerns there. PII in the profiles, ease of use, and some flags and some whatever. But it does look like it works well. And it is going to be on by default in Go 121. And on the complete opposite side of the spectrum in the community, let's talk about some hate mail.
We got hate mail, right? Someone hates our show?
No, not yet. I didn't get any hate mail yet. I actually got quite a few nice comments in Stack Overflow and on email and on LinkedIn and on Slack about the podcast. Now I'm talking about Reddit. There was a post making the rounds about 2 weeks ago called "What Sucks About Golang." I just saw it in my feed, so took a while to get to me. And talking about it with some people, I found that there's a post called "Lies We Tell Ourselves to Keep Using Golang." I don't know how much I stand behind everything that's written there. It's a bit of a rant. It's a rant that comes up after a different rant called "I Want Off Mr. Golang's Wild Ride." Maybe you saw it on Hacker News, on Reddit, on Lobsters. He's trying to talk from basically a side of someone who doesn't like Go. There are some interesting points in the post itself. Basically sounds like someone who's been burned by bad Go code too many times. And since we are working with other Go developers, I think it's worth noting that not everybody loves the language and thinks it's simple, great, useful for beginners. Some people don't connect to it, and it's important to empathize with them and understand why if you do want to embrace Go in your projects. It's a long read. If you have a half hour at the train ride, maybe you can chew through the blog. And also this talks about the original thread of what sucks about Go reminded me of your video, Jonathan, where you talk about stuff that you didn't like about Go.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's some match there, like stuff that was mentioned in the Reddit thread that you mentioned as well in your video. But one thing I really connected with was dealing with private Git repos better, because
yeah, that's one that didn't make my video. It probably should have. That's one that annoys me. Here's one complaint I agree with. It didn't make my video, although I disagree with the reason. The commenter says, for a language whose primary reason d'être is supposed to be building web applications, the standard library's JSON handling is an abomination. I agree that the standard library's JSON handling is poor, although I don't know what they think is an abomination. I don't agree that Go's reason to exist is web applications per se, but that's maybe not really relevant to the discussion.
One thing that I found that I was happy to see was the variable equals variable. Someone just wrote a TT, walrus operator TT. It talks about the capturing the loop variable gotcha, that there's you have to recapture the loop inside a variable because otherwise stuff breaks. And we talked about this on the show because fixing it requires a breaking change. But the Go team is rolling out some changes to Go mode and then some other stuff to make that happen. So this change is going to happen, and this comment will age like milk, like Reddit likes to say. So if you find stuff there that you think you can maybe fix, hand in a proposal instead of just complaining on Reddit. But also keep complaining on Reddit because it's important to hear your voice.
And of course, we like to ask the question anyway, indirectly, to all of our guests when we ask them, what would you remove from Go? So I guess we're encouraging this sort of conversation, even if it's a little bit less ranty maybe than these posts are.
Yeah, but if we, took the union of all the proposals of all our guests, I don't think we'll have a functioning language left. So, some people, you have to remove generic, some people you have to keep generic, some people. I think, if you combine all the vectors of all the different directions our interviewees wanted us to take, you'll end up at exactly the same spot.
Yep.
And this makes it for, this week's news. Stick around after the break for an interesting interview with Tamir Friedman, who works with me and has a very interesting talk in Gopher Meetup this week.
This is the part of the show where we would love to tell you about our amazing sponsor, but we don't have one. If you'd like to buy this spot, be sure to contact us. You can reach out to us for sponsorship opportunities or for anything else at news@cupago.dev, or find us, of course, on the web at cupago.dev. We're also on Slack at Cupago, Kebab Case, on the Gopher Slack. If you enjoy this show, be sure to leave a rating on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts, and share this with a friend. Hello and welcome to the interview segment of our exciting episode. We are joined today by Tamir Friedman. Hi, welcome, Tamir. Welcome to the show.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for coming. We're going to be talking about your project called Beyond Go, but before we do that, would you talk a little bit about who you are, maybe what you do, how you're involved in Go, whatever you'd like to tell us?
I'm a software engineer or a DevOps or a lot of other things, including a dancer. And I studied in the Technion, my first degree, and then in the middle of the master's degree, I took it off and went for this startup. And my favorite approach to almost any subject is through the theory and the math behind it.
Did you say you're a dancer?
Yeah.
What kind of dance do you do?
Genres like hip-hop, afro, modern.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I do salsa and bachata, and I've done a little bit of zouk, some zouk hip-hop.
Zouk, it's a very advanced dance.
Yeah.
Nice.
I like dancing too. So tell us about your project. It's called Beyond Go. Why would anybody want to go beyond Go? Isn't Go perfect? You can't see me smiling, but I'm laughing about that. It was a completely sarcastic comment.
Actually, there are a lot of things great about Go, like the even things that people don't think about, like the compilation and the build. If you compare it to the build, the CI/CD of Java or Python or JavaScript, it's a lot better. You can just create a binary and put it inside an Alpine image, and voila, you go into production with a safe container. And the documentation, you have a standard for online documentation. It's things that you don't have in other languages, other than the performance and the concurrency, that it's of course a big advantage. And I think the major advantage, other than you have a one-stop shop, it's called Go. I liked for the most the values of freedom, and that all languages are just behind the curtain are just C, and it's all the same, so you can go from one to another, because Go, its initial implementation was in C. Today it's mostly pure Python, pure Go. But Python, its implementation, it's also C Python, and the JavaScript implementation, it's in V8. And it's all the same behind the scenes.
Generally, the lecture is about using other languages with Go to utilize all the benefits you said you already have. But practically, what does it mean? What did you manage to implement, and how does it work? Which languages can I now use in Go if I implement your methods?
So a lot of languages like JavaScript and Python and Go have integrations with C. And then you can create C bindings. And from here, there are a lot of projects like GoPy and V8 Go that, for example, the GoPy makes you the enablement to run the Go packages from inside Python, if you'd like, and the V8 makes you be able to run JavaScript inside the Go, like it was just a node. And I think it makes you, as a Go programmer, be able to integrate with all other languages without knowing other languages. You can create code for data analysts and use code that was created for web developers. You can utilize it in the backend. It's like the premise of the full stack with the JavaScript in the backend. So now you can have Go in the front end. If you'd like, you can compile Go to WebAssembly and be a full stack developer with Go, not with JavaScript.
Jonathan, you had some experience with that, right?
Well, kind of. I'm one of the co-maintainers, the least active of the two co-maintainers, of the Gopher.js project, which compiles Go into JavaScript. So I've done sort of the opposite. I've run Go in JavaScript. So it predates the WebAssembly target to Go. In fact, it's written by the same person. Richard Mosel wrote Gopher.js initially, and then wrote the WASM support for Go. And so it basically, both of those do essentially the same thing. They convert Go code into either JavaScript or WebAssembly, respectively. So that's the experience I have with kind of mixing the two. Although I've definitely been interested in running JavaScript within Go, even within the Gopher.js project, because one of the things we do to build that project is we run it through a minimizer, which means calling an external dependency, calling Node.js with all of its dependencies and so on. So we've talked about trying to run that all within Go just to simplify the build pipeline. So I'm really curious about exploring that at some point in the future and trying to run Uglify.js or Webpack or whatever within a Go binary.
So to be clear, there are two kinds of options for integration of JavaScript inside Go. Mm-hmm. The first one is actually using pure Go, which has packages like Goja and Auto. And the problem is that it's not the native implementation of JavaScript. It has some bugs with regex, for example, and it supports only JavaScript until ECMA 5, I think, which is before promises. Uh-huh. And if you want JavaScript with limits, all JavaScript that just work purely in Go, and it also be able to compile to WebAssembly because C extensions doesn't have this ability to be compiled into WebAssembly, then you can go for it. But if you want the main path of JavaScript and you want it with the optimizations of V8, which is highly optimized, then you probably should go for the binding.
Yeah, that seems like the more complete approach that I would probably look at. The other use case I have where the more limited approach might work, I wrote and maintain the CouchDB, a CouchDB driver for Go. And one of the things that CouchDB does is it lets you create JavaScript views on your document data store. And I've thought about, in fact, I've written partial support to run CouchDB like databases on a file system. So you're just a directory structure, but there's no way to do views on that. So I've thought about trying to execute JavaScript within Go for that purpose. So I would probably look at both of those options for that and choose the one that works the best. So that's another place where I may in the future be executing JavaScript within Go.
So, Tamir, what's the specific use case that you were required to introduce JavaScript to Go, other than the fact that it's super, super cool?
So I have a manager called Shai in the specific project. He asked me to use a package, a nice package, really nice package. But the problem is it's written in JavaScript. And what the hell, what should I do? And I thought the fastest approach was to just run it inside Go and not implementing a CI/CD and deployment for JavaScript service, which will give me a lot of work in my other job as DevOps.
So I think that's really the crux. You unlocked the ability to use the very rich ecosystem of JavaScript libraries without having to port the library, which I think is maybe the biggest value of this change. Like, I have a library I like in JavaScript, I can just use it in my Go service. It's not super out of the box, but I can now, which is a whole different approach to really setting up microservices and another build pipeline, etc.
Yeah, so it was very easy for a package that it's mostly a logic package, and it has no much side effects. And because the problem with this going in this way is that it's very hard to debug things. If you want to debug a code execution that goes from Go inside the JavaScript and then call a callback, that it can be possibly go back to Go, because you can close the loop and run callback written in Go and inject it inside the JavaScript program. And it's pretty hard to debug if it's becoming a big project. Then I think if you have to use a lot of JavaScript and in a complex way, then probably this is not the way you should go. But if it's, like you said, a small library and it's a close approach, such that anyone from outside shouldn't know it's written in JavaScript, then it's a great example for using it.
So if people want to check out Beyond Go and what you've been working on and learn more about it, where could they hear about it?
So in the 22nd of March, in Wednesday, 2 days from now, I'm going to lecture about it in the conference of Go in Tel Aviv, Israel. And I'm going to show how you can invoke JavaScript from Go and also run Go in the front end and invoke the JavaScript from inside Go, from inside Python. And it's going to be a lot of fun and freedom and equal access for languages from within other languages. And I think it has a lot of good values inside it.
Very cool. Do you know if that will be recorded for people who can't attend the meetup?
I'm not sure, but okay. It's going to be in Hebrew, so I'm not sure if the global audience is a target for this lecture.
Fair enough. Cool. Well, anything you'd like to add before we close out the interview? Anything we should have asked about that we forgot to?
You said something about special questions.
Yes, we do have special questions. First one: if somebody comes up to you and holds a gun to your head and says, "Tamir, you have to take a feature out of Go," what would that feature be?
Oh, of course, differs. I think differ. It's the worst feature in Go. It make a mess with all the scoping of variables and the executed when it executed and when the assignment happened and when it takes the values, if it's when you define the differ or when you call it, and they could actually implement it like with in Python, and I think it would be a lot better.
Good answer.
Yeah, we had a specific bug with that where Tamir and I work, where you defer the log and you log the parameters to an API function. But if some of them were pointers, they would change throughout the API, and you would just log the wrong things, and we were like ripping our hairs out. But just to clarify, I disagree with Tamir completely, and I think defer is a beautiful keyword because it allows me to push off work to later, which is something I really like to do.
Oh, of course. We just need a procrastinate feature to replace it. And the flip side of that, if you could add a feature to Go, what would you like to see added?
Of course, I think immutability. If Go pretend to be a functional language, there is no functional language that doesn't support immutable variables and null safety and pure functions. I think it's a must for Go for being a good functional language.
I 100% agree. I would love to see that. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing your experience about going beyond Go, even within the Go ecosystem. It's pretty cool that we have this flexibility these days to mix and match different ecosystems. So I think that's awesome. If people want to reach out and get in contact with you, are you on LinkedIn or social media? How can they get in touch with you?
I guess in the Telegram.
So we'll put a link to that in the show notes. Thanks a lot, Tamir. Now back to work.
Was a really pleasure.